to our final story. This is the Candace Owens story. Oh, dear God. This rabbi that she decided to have a conversation with, Candace, Rabbi Barclay, she said he attacked her for things that she never said. But I want to show you again how the Zionist propaganda works. I want you to hear what this guy says, because I'm going to break down some of these statements, because you have to know how to push back on these talking points. Listen to this.
You appeared on Charlie Kirk's show and you referred to me as anti-Semitic. Is that correct? Okay.
Not only that, Candace, I've actually written a couple of articles, one in November and one last week, about your anti-Semitism. Yeah.
Correct. And referring to that article that you wrote last week, published on March 9th, the heading reads, "Let's be honest, Candace Owens is a Jew-hating bigot." So that's very punchy, very strong language. And I want to actually go through this article point by point so that you can defend your position and say why you wrote this.
Candace, I think before that, and as I said, I'm very optimistic that you would have a dialogue about something. I think before that, there are some real steps, which is, I have called you, and I'm not alone in this, many Jews have called you an anti-Semite. Mm-hmm. I've also talked to people who say you have a really sweet heart, just so you know. You and I have a number of mutual friends.
So let's pause here for a second. Okay. Think about what he just said. So he feels that she is anti-Semitic, but he also feels that she has a sweet heart. Hold on to that.
In the world. But I think it's important to first identify what anti-Semitism is. It is a different type of hate than any other type of hate in the world. And if you and I are speaking crossways because we have a different understanding and definition, that's not going to lead to any dialogue. That's not going to lead. Look, I said to Skylar, I'd love to walk out of here and say, you know what, I was wrong, and write an article, I apologize, and I was wrong. But the first piece is to have a mutual understanding of what is anti-Semitism. I think that would help a tremendous amount.
I actually totally agree with you on that. That is a perfect place to start. Could you provide for us a definition of anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, because I think that is the break. If we're not speaking the same language, where can we go, right? So there's a man, a blessed memory man named Lord Jonathan Sachs. He was the chief rabbi of England. He had a great line. He really defined anti-Semitism, that anti-Semitism is Jews have no right to exist collectively as Jews with the same rights as other human beings. Which is kind of a weird statement. So let's just track back a bit to understand the history of anti-Semitism. 2,000 years ago.
Hold on to what he just said there in reference to the definition, right? Okay. He said collectively, no right to exist collectively as a group of people. That's important because his definition is going to change. In fact, let me make sure. One second. I just want to make sure I go straight to that part, just because this story, this little speech that he gives takes way too long. Okay, yeah. I can go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah. He gives some story about Moses. We ain't got time for all that. Let's jump right into this part here.
Because it's about Jews not having the right to exist collectively, when they live in their little communities in the Middle Ages, anti-Semitism is a hate against their religion. By the time you get to the 18th and 20th centuries, when so many Jews have assimilated, they are in culture, they are in arts, they're in science, it's no longer against them for their religion, it's against them for their race. This anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world, and the hate that mutates. In 1948...
Pause here for a second. So what he's doing here, and this is not to say that what's bad about this, the way that Zionists are overusing that term and misusing that term and just calling anyone that disagrees with them in reference to this issue with Israel and Gaza, is that it actually takes away from people who actually are anti-Semitic, right? what I've noticed, particularly with the Zionists, is that everything in reference to Israel, it's all about this has happened to nobody else but us. It's the oldest this, it's the most hateful this, it's the most racist that, we are the only, it's like playing the ultimate victim card. Again, it sucks because there are people who really are anti-Semitic. There are people who really do hate Jewish people. But what has happened is that Zionism has taken it a step. It's taken it towards a step where it's like now, even if you just disagree, if you have disagreement with what the Israeli government is doing, now you can be called that. Right? Listen to this part.
Hate, because remember, it says Lord Sachs.
Oh, I just want to pause it. You said it's a hate that mutates.
Correct.
So your belief then is that the definition of anti-Semitism can necessarily change. Is that correct?
It's not just my belief. It is the commonly accepted understanding in both the Jewish and academic worlds.
Okay.
This isn't, okay. As I said, that's why I quoted, this is a quote. It's a great thing from Lord Sachs, Jonathan Sachs. It's a great thing from Nihilecka. This is just accepted as the understanding of, a cultural anthropologist.
So I would just
pause for a second. So he is saying that the definition can change. Here is why that is incredibly dangerous. Look at what just happened a couple of months ago in Congress, where they tried to actually pass legislation that says anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That was after the rise of protests, right? The pro-Palestinian protests across the world. Those protests are still happening. The protests haven't stopped, right? So people obviously care really passionately about this issue and have been very vocal about that. The problem with, well, yes, it mutates so the definition can change. That means that Zionists can change the definition to whatever the fuck they want it to. They can change it to include any other thing. It could be something else 2-3 years from now. How far does that go?
say off the bat, I do not accept that definitions can just mutate. That is something that I could debate that on, like the definition of a woman. I mean, and I'm saying not just about Jewish people. I think that we have to have a concrete definition to work with, because then you can just update and say, actually, I've changed that, and now this is what constitutes anti-Semitism.
But Candace, that is the horror of anti-Semitism. So what you are saying to me is that anti-Semitism is this and does not change. What I am saying to you is that the entire world and scholars about anti-Semitism recognize that it is a unique hate.
Yeah, Zionist scholars. It's not the entire world. Zionist scholars. They're the ones that made that decision. I'm willing to bet. Aye.
That if you define it as that Jews should not be able to exist collectively, okay, as a collective, they just shouldn't have that right. That changes from the Middle Ages with religion, the 18th through 20th centuries about race, and then after Israel's created, it's a hatred based on the nation. And until that is understood, that it is, this isn't something that's really questioned about among academics, theologians, Jewish scholars. I'm not presenting it. This is why I thought I'm so optimistic about a dialogue. But I think part of it is you view that the hate can't mutate. And what I'm trying to tell you is that we have 2,000 years of history that demonstrate the exact opposite.
So
you are not the only you're not the only one that has 2,000 years of history. See, this is the thing that, first of all, hating the nation, you see what he's trying to do? So he's trying to basically say, now, if you despise the state of Israel, that's also, see how far they can stretch this? And he says this as though other nations have never been despised. That is obviously not true, right? Like, there are nations, Russia has been despised. It was also despised when it was the Soviet Union. Let's be real. So it's not like your state of Israel is the only one that has been despised. Again, it's the ultimate victim mentality. This is what I was talking about. We're the only people in the world. God, nothing has ever happened. Only one.
And I'm gonna just push back just gently here. For me personally, if I thought that racism could just be an ever-shifting definition based on the experience of Black people, it would be a remarkable power, and I would be able to create something like BLM, which could say that everything was racist. So I am not going to be able to agree that definition should be able to transform according to what's happening during the day. But here's what I
pause. First of all, the comment that she made here about BLM, there's a difference between BLM, the organization, and BLM, the grassroots. Candace Owens knows this. But again, she's not paid to differentiate between the two. She's paid to make it seem like it was all one thing. So yes, there was the BLM organization. Yes, we've talked about this before. They didn't handle money correctly. They took some of that money and became famous off of it, bought like a $5 million house. What the organization itself was saying and what the grassroots Black Lives Matter movement were saying, these are two distinct different things. A lot of the Black Lives Matter, the real Black Lives Matter activists were arrested or they disappeared. And you never heard from these people again. I'm dead serious. You can talk to Nick about this, who was at the Ferguson protest. A lot of the real hardcore Black Lives Matter protesters disappeared. They were supposedly arrested and never saw these people again. Not the Mallorys and all the people who made money off of it that were a part of the Black Lives Matter organization. So there's two different things.
will say, if you could, just because I think it's really important for us to get to going through this article, because then you might be able to explain why you view it as anti-Semitism. If you could just give us what you are saying the current definition of anti-Semitism is today, that would be very helpful.
The current definition of anti-Semitism today has to do with what the feelings are. It has to do with anti-Zionism, number one.
Pause. Did you hear what he just said? The current definition today has to deal with what feelings are. Whose feelings? What if your feelings change? Now you see he's added in anti-Zionism. You guys see where this is going? How do you think this is going to affect your right to free speech?
Is a definition. Anti-Zionism, anti-Israel is anti-Semitism.
Okay.
So
you believe that Jewish people can be anti-Semitic?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you see a gathering of Jewish people who say, you know, I'm Jewish, but I don't support Israel or Bibi Netanyahu, you say that person can be anti-Semitic. You
just did two different things and was very. You just did two different things that were totally unrelated, Candace.
Okay.
You said that Jews that do not support Israel.
Yes.
And you said Jews that do not support Bibi Netanyahu.
I'm just saying that because he's the current prime minister. So I'm saying, like, if they say they don't support.
No, this is where you're missing the point. So
Okay.
I'm going to go under the following premise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to go under the premise that you care about people. You and I don't know each other, but I'm going to go under that premise. I'm going to go under the premise that you have no desire to ever hurt anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the premise I'm coming into this dialogue with. You have been devastatingly hurtful. And I think that I'm going to go from you don't understand what it means to the Jewish world.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great teaching that comes out of every sociologist, every person in academics, is that I don't get to tell a black man if he's experiencing racism.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. I don't get to tell you if you're experiencing misogyny. You know. If I make a comment and it's misogynistic, and you say, Rabbi, you know, that was really misogynistic, my job is to say, wow, I didn't mean that. I apologize. That's not what I meant. And you do not get the right to say what is anti-Semitic or Jew hatred.
First of all, that had nothing to do with what she said when she mentioned Benjamin Netanyahu. You see what he tried to do? Let me take this all the way away from BBC. They don't like it when you mention Netanyahu because they know that Netanyahu's approval rating is significantly low in Israel. He is not well liked. So when she mentioned Netanyahu, because he is the prime minister of Israel at this point in time, notice he took issue with that. You're not supposed to mention anything negative about Israel. They don't like it when you do that.
I'm not trying to, I don't think I said anything about me having the right. I just said to you, would you then view, because I did host somebody who is Jewish, Dave Smith, on my show. And I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's a comedian, he's a libertarian. He is not pro-Zionist. So I'm just asking you for clarity, because you're saying that you can't dismiss a Jewish person, but aren't you thereby dismissing Jewish people who say that I don't support Israel as a state? I'm just trying to have you answer that question.
And the answer is, I will ask you about the same question. Mm-hmm. Are there blacks who do not support blacks? Are there pick the cause or the minority who do not support or not, or actually even better? You and I both sit on the conservative side politically. We share that, right? And we face.
See, he tried to do the black thing and he realized, oh, well, I can't go there. No, you can't. You really can't go there like that with us.
The same way when it comes to that. And we both, I think, are disappointed in those who are Republicans in name only, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean?
No, not correct. That's not the same thing. I wish she would have pushed back here. There's a difference between a political party and a religion. There's a difference between a political party and a statehood. These are not the same things. So you see how he tried to throw that in there? We know people that are Republican, but they're Republican in name only. That is not the same thing as saying, well, someone may be Jewish, but Jewish in name only because they don't practice the religion. These are not the same things. I wish he would have pushed back on that. Oh my God.
Republicans?
Well, I wouldn't describe a race as a political ideology, like a political party. That's very different. So to say that you can't be a race, like you're not black if you don't support this, is different than, like, you're basically saying that a Jewish person can be anti-Semitic. So that would be like saying a black person can in fact be racist towards, or they're not black.
Look, I'm not going to comment on black community.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought it up. You were the one who brought it up. I'm not going to comment on the black community. She didn't bring it up. You did.
I will say there are plenty of self-hating Jews.
Okay, so you do believe, that's all I was trying to get you to say, is that Jewish people who don't support Israel, you are saying they are anti-Semitic. I just want to understand that. I'm
saying it very clearly. They are self-hating Jews. Let's use that term very specifically. Okay. And you need to understand why they are self-hating Jews. And you need to understand, as numerous people have talked about, I've written about, Prager's talked about, Gorka's talked about, Levin's talked about, a number of people have talked about, Shapiro's talked about, and as I say, I've written about, is that a people want to assimilate. For 2,000 years, Jews have been persecuted, and so they want to assimilate, and so many have converted from Judaism not to another religion, but to leftist politics.
Ah, see that, guys? That's what it's really about. You hear what he just said? That people have left, some of them have left the Jewish religion, and they have converted to leftist politics. First of all, just because you leave the faith doesn't mean you become a leftist. You know how many people I know that have left their religion? Wasn't that a song, Losing My Religion, right? How many of you watching right now grew up Catholic, but you're no longer practicing? How many? How many of you grew up Baptist, but you're no longer Baptist? How many of you grew up? I mean, just think about this, for example. How many people do you know like that? I know plenty of people like that. So he's saying this is a problem and that they're self-hating because they no longer practice the religion. Isn't this some cult-like shit to you? This does not make any sense. Because they're not practicing the religion anymore. That's what he said.
That becomes their religion. And they lose their identity. That is a reality. So you need to understand, or I shouldn't say you need to, that's not fair, and I apologize. I would hope that you understand a history and an understanding that we define what anti-Semitism is. And what happened on October 7th, and I wrote an article about you in November. I don't know if you read it or not. I was told that you had, but I don't know if you did or not.
I did not.
Okay. I wish you had, and I really wish you had. Because we might
pause here. Did he get to, I want to hope I didn't miss the Shapiro part. Let me just make sure I did not miss that, because that part is important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the premise I'm coming into this dialogue with. You have been devastatingly hurtful. I apologize. That's not what I meant. And you do not get the right to say what is anti-Semitic or Jew hatred.
I'm not trying to, I don't think I said anything about me having the right. I just said to you, would you then view, because I did host somebody who is Jewish, Dave Smith, on my show, and I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's a comedian, he's a libertarian. He is not pro-Zionist. So I'm just asking you for clarity, because you're saying that you can't dismiss a Jewish person, but aren't you thereby dismissing Jewish people who say that I don't support Israel as a state? I'm just trying to have you answer that question.
And the answer is, I will ask you back the same question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there blacks who do not support blacks? Are there?
Okay, we got to that part already. I'm just trying to see where I'm at with the line here. Okay. Sometimes with the Twitter thing, it's hard to move forward with I can't remember if I got to the Shapiro part or not. Shoot. Well, we'll find out, because I think I was right about here.
Another religion, but to leftist politics. That becomes their religion. And they lose their identity. That is a reality. So you need to understand, or I shouldn't say you need to, that's not fair, and I apologize.
That part right there. We're at 1430. We go back to 14, right about here. It's the part about identity, because this is a revealing moment.
Well, I wouldn't describe a race as a political ideology, like a political party. That's very different. So to say that you can't be a race, like you're not black if you don't support this, is different than, like, you're basically saying that a Jewish person can be anti-Semitic. So that would be like saying a black person can in fact be racist towards, or they're not black.
Look, I'm not going to comment on black community.
Mm-hmm.
I will say there are plenty of self-hating Jews.
Okay, so you do believe, that's all I was trying to get you to say, is that Jewish people who don't support Israel, you are saying they are anti-Semitic. I just want to understand that.
I'm saying it very clearly, they are self-hating Jews. Let's use that term very specifically.
Okay.
And you need to understand why they are self-hating Jews. And you need to understand, as numerous people have talked about, I've written about, Prager's talked about, Gorka's talked about, Levin's talked about, a number of people have talked about, Shapiro's talked about, and as I say, I've written about, is that people want to assimilate. For 2,000 years, Jews have been persecuted, and so they want to assimilate. And so many have converted from Judaism, not to another religion, but to leftist politics.
Okay, that part about converting to leftist politics. Now listen to this part, guys.
That becomes their religion. And
that part right there. So he said the leftist politics becomes their religion. Listen.
They lose their identity. That is a reality.
They lose their identity. Now, this is one of the claims that Ben Shapiro has made. Now, see, let me call out the hypocrisy on the conservative side, because how many times have you heard conservatives say, not all, but conservatives say, don't talk about race, don't talk about LGBTQ, that's identity politics, just focus on class. And I've told you multiple times, class is also an identity. So I don't know where people get these talking points from, but class is also an identity. So one of the things he pointed to Ben Shapiro also says the same thing. Ben Shapiro agrees that they're losing their identity when they do that. But Ben Shapiro also complains about identity politics. Candace Owens complains about identity politics. So why is it that in reference to being Jewish and that as your identity, Why is it all of a sudden that's not identity politics? Pay attention to what he's saying. He said they lose their identity. But I thought the conservative viewpoint was supposed to be against identity politics. That's what Ben Shapiro says. That's what Candace Owens says. So it seems like to me, you're only against identity politics when it's about Black people, when it's about LGBTQ people, but when it's about Jewish people, when it's about Zionism, all of a sudden it's okay to embrace identity politics. People have to start calling this shit out. I've seen this time and time again. This is the hypocrisy. There's hypocrisy on the left. There's hypocrisy on the right. But the big one for me has been the identity politics one that seems to mostly come from the right. Let's continue.
So you need to understand, or I shouldn't say you need to, that's not fair, and I apologize. I would hope that you understand a history and an understanding that we define what anti-Semitism is. And what happened on October 7th, and I wrote an article about you in November. I don't know if you read it or not. I was told that you had, but I don't know if you did or not.
I did not.
Okay. I wish you had. And I really wish you had, because we might be in a very different place. You went on Tucker Carlson this is in November. And
okay, go ahead. I was going to say I want to talk about that because you put that in this article, which was published just last week.
So I wrote a very specific article, and you can find it right now. And it was an impersonal invitation to you and for you, that despite everything else I had read or seen or heard, that my belief and my hope is that your comment of wanting to have an academic discussion about October 7th came from a place of not really realizing what October 7th was. October 7th is unique in recorded human history as the...
Oh, here we go with everything's unique. Everybody see this? Everything's unique. It only happened to Israel. Everything is unique. You guys see this running theme? Here come the tears. Oh my God, what happened on October 7th? Man, please. Get out of here with this mess, man. Get out of here with this mess. How about let's start talking about what has happened to American descendants of slavery in this country for years. We're not talking about just slavery. I'm talking about everything after that. Things that you did not have to go through. You didn't have to go through Jim Crow laws. You didn't have to deal with redlining. You didn't have to deal with the crime bill. You see, there's a difference between people actually displaying hatred towards someone and being an oppressed group and dealing with systemic racism. That's the big difference. And people need to start calling this out. Don't be afraid. Don't let people scare you. They're going to call you names anyway. They're already calling people anti-Semitic because they support the Palestinian cause. They're already doing that. But people need to start calling this out. Oh my God, woe is me. It's always, we're the worst, the unique, it only this way, it only happened to us.
Ugliest day of humanity. What was done on October 7th? Taking a young woman, taking her phone to videotape her being raped on the corpse of her dead boyfriend, and then shot on it and sending that video to her parents.
That was not proven. That has been debunked so many times. These lies, the Zionist lies, I swear to God.
Beheading a man with a garden hoe, kicking a woman until her body parts fall apart is unique in terms of the intention to attack civilians. And so in November, after you made the comment on Tucker Carlson about wanting an academic discussion about how, those kind of comments that you made and the ennui that you demonstrate, I wrote an article saying that I would arrange for you. There's a film, 47-minute film by the IDF. It is not based, it is all the footage done by the Hamas terrorists of what they were doing so proudly, what they wanted to do.
Right. You mean the footage that was created and made up by the IDF? She's supposed to sit down and watch that and trust their video footage that they've already been called out for editing and stitching things together. Candace, I sincerely hope you don't fall for this. If you fall for this bullshit, if you fall for this video that he wants you to see, these statements from the IDF, if you fall for this, you are not as smart as I thought you were.
And my belief was, I don't think that you quite realize that. And I would arrange for private screening for you and your friends. Mm-hmm. And that I would arrange that and then have the discussion about how you feel about October 7th.
Okay.
Will you arrange a private screening for her and her friends about what Israel has been doing to the Palestinian people since 1948? Will you arrange a screening about that? Will you arrange a screening about how the IDF has been pulling these people out of their damn homes, beating people, imprisoning people? Will you arrange a screening about that? You see, this is the BS.
So I just really would like to get to your article because I think it's important. I want to acknowledge your pain about October 7th.
Wait, that's not an opinion. That's not an opinion.
No, I didn't say opinion. I said I want to acknowledge your pain about
October 7th. I apologize.
See how quick he was to jump in and accuse her of doing something or saying something that she didn't say?
Yeah,
I apologize.
I didn't say that. I said I want to acknowledge your pain about October 7th, and I want to get to that because you are...
Because that's all pain.
Yeah, you're mischaracterizing what I said on Tucker Carlson, but I do have the clip and we're going to be able to watch it. I definitely did not say I wanted to have an academic debate about October 7th. That's not what I said at all. But like I said, I have the clip. And I do also want... I think it's best for us to dive into what you actually wrote about me because there are several mischaracterizations, I believe, of what I said, but both of us are going to be able to watch it. So again, this is the article. And by the way, you did say in this article that you heard that I received your invitation. That is false.
I did not.
I think it's important to just maybe name the people who told you that I received your invitation.
No, I'd rather not do that, especially since you're saying that it's incorrect, and in which case I apologize.
Because he didn't hear that. He don't want to name the names because he didn't hear that. That was just another lie. That was just another Zionist lie.
No, you can apologize. I just think that a lot of the reason that things happen is because there is this sort of back channeling and discussion, and nobody told me that I got an invitation, and now you've written that I refused an invitation, and so that adds to people believing.
Because he's a liar. He wrote that because he's a liar, Candace. They've been lying all this damn time.
Candace, I'm going to ask you a question right now. I'm inviting you to forget about the article. Because I have no issue and would love to write an article saying I was wrong. Candace Owens does not feel that way. I would love that. So I'm inviting you right now. I will set up a screening for you. Will you come?
If you set up a screening for me after we go through this, I want to also be able to estimate your character by going through some of the things that you wrote. You did write some things that I believe.
Wait. I'm asking you a yes or no question.
No. And I just said to you, I'm going to give you an answer to that. But I want to first go through your article because I want to be able to estimate.
Wait. I'm asking you a question. I will take the entire article.
I'm not saying I'm not going to answer your question. I am just saying that I would like to go through this, see how you feel.
You said you hadn't had an invitation. I'm asking you. I don't have to be there. I'll set it up for you.
Okay, sure. If you want to set it up for me to have a screening of that here without you there, that's fine. What I'm saying is that I would not, based on what you wrote about me, I wouldn't take an invitation from you anywhere. I think that's fair, given what's in this article. I think that's a normal human response, that if somebody has written something that is utterly libelous about you, it mischaracterizes what you said. But if you want to set it up separately and you want to send it to the Daily Wire and you want us to have a private screening, I absolutely will watch the events of October 7th.
You know what? God bless you. And had I ever heard you say that, I wouldn't have written an article.
Well, I think you still would have, because you made a lot of points in here.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have.
No, he would have still wrote the article. Let's get to, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here. Okay.
To go through these points. So
we'll go through all of them, sure.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's just begin here. So you basically make the argument that I'm drunk on fame, and that is the reason why I have let out the truth about who I am, which makes me a Jew hater. First thing you say is that this is a woman who is such an anti-Semite and so ignorant of history that in 2018 she publicly said that Hitler was okay. Do you actually believe that I publicly said that Hitler was okay?
So from the recording that I heard, including the congressional testimony, which I think was taken out of context, and from the comments that you said, okay, and you correct if I'm wrong, but my understanding from your comments is you were asked a question about nationalism. And you responded about nationalism using the example that nationalism was good, and that what Hitler was nationalistic in Germany, and that was okay. You have said specifically you think Hitler is a horrible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you have condemned Hitler, thank God, without question. And you also brought him up in that discussion about nationalism. Is that all accurate?
So when you just write, she publicly said Hitler was okay, that is dishonest, because what I actually was saying was answering a question, as you brought up, where we were not even talking about Jews, not talking about the Holocaust. A woman was asking about whether or not it's okay for people today to say that they're nationalist when it's often associated as a dirty word. And what I was saying was that it's wrongly associated with Hitler. I don't believe that Hitler was a nationalist because obviously Hitler invaded Poland. He obviously had ambitions outside of... So we have the clip. We have the clip. So we're going to play it. So again, the question that's being asked of me is whether or not nationalism is an okay word to embrace. Let's play the clip so we can hear me and what I actually said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
I wouldn't have even said that, though. If I was her, I wouldn't have even, said that, because here we go.
So again, we're trying there to define nationalism. Does your statement, she publicly said that Hitler was okay, is that an honest statement?
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a moment. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You were asked a question about nationalism. You responded with an example of Adolf Hitler.
Yes, I said because Americans associate, the reason why they think it's a dirty word is because of Adolf Hitler.
You respond, and you have subsequently, and I've seen you subsequently, and I think you even said it at the congressional hearing, you have obviously condemned him for who he was. But you brought Hitler's name into a discussion.
Correct.
Okay. And you justified that this is how America feels or how people feel. And that's your take on it. It's not necessarily accurate. And in fact, it probably isn't from an actual sociological standpoint. But that's your opinion. Fine. But Candace, you put in the same sentence what he did if it just had stayed in Germany was okay. But more importantly, and here's a piece of the anti-Semitism. Why bring one of the most evil men of history into the discussion? You could just as easily have given any negative examples of nationalism.
So again, like I said, if it were me, I wouldn't have said that. But remember what we were saying about Alexei Navalny just a couple of weeks ago. We were calling out Alexei Navalny's nationalists. We were calling out, his nationalism. We were calling out his racism. We were calling out what he said in reference to calling Palestinian people and Muslims cockroaches. We were calling all those things out. So again, you have to understand, like I said this before, I do believe that Candace is a very smart person. And I think that Candace says certain things to get attention. I think she says it to get that soundbite because she know it's going to send off an alarm bell. Sometimes some of the ways that you become very big is by saying things that are going to shock people, right? We've seen this happen with a number of people. She's not alone, but there were other examples that she could have used, and she did choose to use that one. And then you have him, Mr. Zionist dude here. He's going to take something like that, and even though that was years ago, he's going to hold on to it, and he added that to his collection of things to add to this article that he wrote about.
You chose to bring Hitler on, not them.
I did, and I have no. If I could go backwards in the context of trying to understand why Americans think that nationalism is a bad word, it was appropriate for me to bring off Adolf Hitler. It is totally appropriate in any capacity when you are talking about history and historical sentiments to bring up any relevant character that has created those sentiments. So I just want to yes or no. After watching that, I want to make sure we don't run out of time here. After watching that in context, do you think it is fair that you wrote, she publicly said that Hitler was okay? Hitler was okay.
Yeah. Yes, by bringing me even into the conversation, yes, I do.
Okay.
So again, this goes back to what he was saying earlier about changing the definition, right? So it's not just about, for him, it's not just about changing the definition. It's about changing other things that you say too. So were those her exact words that she said? No, it wasn't. But how will it be received? And so because she even brought up his name, he was able to use that against her. And there's other things that he's accused her of as well. But these are the kind of games that Zionists play. And this is what I've tried to explain to people before. I've watched a number of these interviews with different people. I've seen a number of these debates. Notice the talking points are the same. We can change the definition of anti-Semitism. If you are against the state of Israel, yes, you are anti-Semitic. Like they're changing this all the time now. You can't criticize anybody. Notice if you try to criticize even Netanyahu, they want to interrupt you and pull back from that because they know that Netanyahu is not popular in Israel, right? So in order to beat them at their game, you have to know the talking points they use and how to push back on those talking points effectively. And one of the things that I seem to not see mentioned often is this. Now, I've mentioned this on the show before, but I'll continue to say it because I want people to look at the definition of what it means to be a Semite, right? Look at this. Semite, the name given in the 19th century to a member of any people who speak one of the Semitic languages, a family of languages spoken primarily in parts of Western Asia and Africa. The term, therefore, came to include Arabs, Akkadians, Canaanites, Hebrews, some Ethiopians, and Aramean tribes, although Mesopotamia. Sorry, I thought it was Mesopotopia. Mesopotamia, the western coast of the Mediterranean, and the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa have all been proposed as possible sites for the prehistoric origins of Semitic-speaking population. There remains no archaeological or scientific evidence of a common Semitic people. Let me say this one more time for the people in the back. There remains no archaeological or scientific evidence of a common Semitic people. Now, The term, therefore, came to include Arabs. This is the piece I feel like a lot of people leave out. And I've said this time and time again, Palestinians are Semites. Thank you, E. Rogel. Mesopotamia. Thank you. At first thought, I thought it said Mesotopia. Thank you so much. So you guys see this? What's that, Quab? Quab said purposely leave out. But even the people that have these discussions and these debates, you know, why isn't anyone saying this? It's not even just Arabs. Like I said, look at all of the different, look at this. Asia, Western Asia, and Africa. The western coast, again, of the Mediterranean, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Horn of Africa. Make sure you share that with people. Make sure you share that with people, because I really don't think a lot of people know that. And I don't think a lot of people are saying that. Everyone's trying to pronounce the word in the chat. It's really funny. No, Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. That's funny. Anyway, think about that. Think about it.